Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go up to all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, July 16th, 2022, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan. How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we get started, guys, we are a family-friendly podcast, since we try to be. So sometimes words may fly, and sometimes there may be things that might be shown that might be too graphic for younger viewers. So viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So not a lot that we have here on the weekend review, but again, we have some delicious tidbits. It sounds more like a cooking show than an actual news segment. I apologize. But I would be remiss, guys. I know, like I said before, talking about the January 6 hearings, and that new evidence has come out that just seems, well, a little bit too much like a coincidence. And I never thought I'd put this in the same sentence: the Secret Service and text messages. You can't make this up.
Mary Alice Parks. So Mary Alice, this is a pretty big accusation. So what are the facts right now as we know them?
Yeah, Kira, this is just a wild story. We heard the Inspector General there at the Department of Homeland Security writing to lawmakers saying that he's frustrated that his office had requested that these text messages be turned over, and he is saying that he has just not gotten them, and that the answer from Secret Service is that they were deleted, they were lost as a part of a device replacement sort of program, that they were swapping out cell phones for agents. And so he reported the fact that he is frustrated that he has not been able to get these text messages to lawmakers, and that really sounded the alarm. Overnight, we got a statement from Senator Gary Peters. He's the chair of the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Government Affairs. And he said, we have to get to the bottom of whether the Secret Service destroyed federal records or whether the Department of Homeland Security obstructed oversight. So serious questions and concerns from him. He said that not only does the DHS Inspector General need these records, but that the public deserves to have a full picture of what occurred on January 6th. And they really believe that these text messages might help fill out that full picture, Kara.
So the Secret Service continues to say it has cooperated with this investigation, even putting out a statement saying that the insinuation that the Secret Service maliciously deleted text messages following a request is false. So what do we know about their role specifically in this investigation, if anything at all?
Yeah, I mean, they've been asked to participate in multiple investigations, not only sort of the most high-profile one on Capitol Hill, the January 6th committee, but these other investigations happening across the federal government, like the Inspector General's own investigations taking place within the Department of Homeland Security. Secret Service has been asked to cooperate. And you're right, you see in their statements overnight, they're saying, we have been. They're saying, don't accuse us of wrongdoing. We've been helping. We've been turning things over. They've tried to say that this was a part of a routine sort of maintenance upgrade, device upgrade, that there was nothing nefarious here. But they're going to continue to face a lot of questions. Are there backups? Why was this kind of device replacement able to go forward? Whose devices were replaced? When? Why? Why wasn't any of this stopped? I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of questions, because it is no surprise that people will be interested in the records from Secret Service for that day.
Well, and so is the Inspector General. It's putting out a statement as well, saying the Inspector General Act provides that an Inspector General shall have timely access to all department records and other materials related to department programs overseen by the Inspector General. So what kind of pressure can the committee put on these agencies, Mary Alice, to actually recover deleted texts?
Yeah, clearly the Inspector General really frustrated there. They can put a lot of pressure. The committee can really side with the Inspector General. I mean, we have seen this committee be bold in their actions. We've seen them subpoena records up and down the federal government. And we've seen them get a lot of help from the White House and from other branches of the federal government, the National Archives and DOJ, turning over records, being supportive of their work and the investigations surrounding that day. We've heard the White House in the past saying that they want the information out there. They want the public to know exactly what happened. So I imagine if the committee puts pressure, they're going to try to get answers.
So bottom
So like again, guys, it was weird. I admit, completely weird that not to go tinfoil hat here, but the timing of it all. Keep in mind, January 5th and 6th, that text messages were deleted. Now, of course, this could all just be coincidence. This could all just be that, well, this is just the process. This is the changing of the guard of Secret Service detail, because every president leaves with their own detail. Even Dorito. But you can't help but wonder. It's like it's kind of like it just bothers you. It's like on that day, we knew, if you've been paying attention to the hearings, we've heard what Trump has said to Secret Service, to his own cabinet, to his own family members, to his White House staff, to his advisors. We've heard it all. No one is sitting there saying that he was really starting to show his senile, crazy, old, paranoid self that he may no longer be president. And the idea of prison started to get to him. I understand that. But it just makes me wonder, and I don't mean to play conspiracy theory. I don't mean to put the tinfoil hat on. But I can't stop wondering. It's like, and I would think that for such which is considered usually a normal procedure when changing out government equipment, it just kind of makes you wonder. It's like, why do we need to mass delete these texts unless there's something there? Is it something there? Is it something there? Schrodinger's cat all over again. But it's just, like I said, just a little dip in this conspiracy corner, but you can't help but wonder, is there something else out there within those texts of Secret Service that we may actually need to know about? Just saying. But moving right along, guys, I did want to cover this next one because I don't know why. I do not know why. If there's one thing Biden can take away from his term as president, aside from the fact that Republicans have been staunch in everything, said no to everything, did not bring a single bill to help the American people outside of pushing on the previous president to ramrod Supreme Court justice picks in to eventually lead to the overturning of Roe versus Wade. But Biden, aside from the Republicans, Biden will have another albatross around his neck, unfortunately. And that name is something we haven't said a lot on this show in a recent while. Good old Joe Manchin, the single guy. I mean, it's kind of weird. You haven't really heard from Kristen Sinema in a while. Kristen Sinema, did they get to her? Did she play ball? Did she suddenly realize the midterms were in November and that she could possibly be kicked out of her own seat? Who knows? But Manchin again is the literal albatross to anything progressive in America. And it's sad that it's not the Republicans that are preventing the progression of America, not by themselves. Oh no. One lone senator in a 50 slim majority Congress is literally the albatross that prevents any of Biden's plans from going through. Who knew a Republican disguised as a Democrat would literally be the linchpin to everything? Just saying.
And blocking the Biden agenda.
Yeah, and there's a much larger problem, of course, and this sort of gets to the issue here, which is that we have a somewhat broken system. Where, look, the election of the Biden administration, as well as the Democratic majority in both houses of Congress, it's sort of the apex of tens of millions of votes. And climate was at the center of all of that. And what we have in our broken system is one single senator who doesn't just represent special interest, but is himself a special interest. You have a senator who made, I think, about $500,000 every year from his family-owned coal business. Some of the dirtiest fuel that's imaginable, has cost West Virginians far more than they should be paying for electricity. And out of his own personal, political, and financial interests, he has held up this large agenda that tens of millions of people voted for. We have a system that's unable to prevent that from happening. That's a real problem.
What do you think?
Well, I like Errol a tremendous amount, so I'll say this with all due respect. The system's not broken. This is how it's designed to work. It's a 50-50 Senate. The American people sent 50 Republicans and 50 Democrats. They have a nominal majority because they have the tiebreaker. But this is what the Senate is supposed to do. That's why they all have two. to represent the interests of that state. It's not a population-based chamber. It's a state-based chamber. And so I think he's doing that. Also, it may be that if they take a step back and examine Joe Manchin's words, that he's saving them from themselves. Inflation is a major problem. We may be headed into recession, the wrong time to raise taxes. He has a difference of opinion with Joe Biden and the more liberal members of his party about what you should do in those economic circumstances. I think he said last night, look, if you want to go down this road, go elect more liberals. He doesn't view himself as a liberal, and there aren't 51 liberal votes in the Senate. There may be 49, but there are certainly not 51.
The problem, he's not representing any kind of public interest. He's representing his own personal financial interest.
He thinks it's in the interest of his state, and he thinks it's in the interest of people who are worried about inflation.
It's in the interest of his family and of his own pocketbook. It's primarily, and if he was concerned about inflation, the fact of the matter is inflation is fueled by energy costs. Energy costs, they pay some of the highest electric rates in the country in West Virginia. Why? Because they're using dirty coal, which is about the most expensive way to generate electricity.
If you polled
his views, knows that.
If you polled his views on this and Joe Biden's views in West Virginia, who you reckon would win?
I understand the political logic of it. Joe Manchin's going to look out for Joe Manchin. His political and his personal financial interests are now sort of superior to the needs of the entire planet. And the needs of the administration and of the party and of the whole country. That's what makes it feel like a broken system.
At a time when we have massive energy spikes for everyday consumers, I do think there is some logic in what he said about putting the climate agenda on the back burner while we sort out our short-term energy cost issues. And I mean, they're dealing with this in Europe as well. I mean, they're burning coal in Germany now because they're bracing for the economic impacts of their energy shortages as well. So I think to put this all on a personal vendetta or a personal sort of I just don't think it's true. I think the people of his state expect him to act this way.
Well, I don't know if the people of his state expected him to string people along for months and months, which is the reporting here. Apparently that, he acted as if he was going to be bargaining in good faith. And then at the last minute said, no, the whole agenda is dead. Everything that I said about trying to sort of support renewables, electric cars, any kind of climate change legislation was all a big sham, and I'll go continue to make money from dirty coal.
And there are questions about if Chuck Schumer.
So there you have it, folks. They were basically talking about, the simple fact of the matter is, guys, is that good old Manchin, good old reliable, flaky, walking conflict of interest Manchin has decided that he didn't like the way the climate talks were going. Now, keep in mind, part of the Build Back America plan included partial bills for climate change. We all know how dirty coal Manchin feels about climate change, because anything regarding climate change is always going to affect big oil. It's going to affect coal. It's going to affect other areas that are not considered renewable energy. Now, again, Joe Manchin is from West Virginia. West Virginia was known for its coal mining. I have said it once, I'll say it again. Coal mining is a dying business, much like fracking. The simple fact of the matter is that Joe Manchin is also on a board for a coal mining company in his home state. Do you see the conflict of interest here? So of course, any bill that's out there with climate change, with putting restrictions, by allowing the actual EPA to do its job versus what Trump did and stripped the EPA of its powers, of course Manchin's going to be against it. Manchin was also against women's rights. Let's not forget that in November, when they were trying to codify Roe versus Wade, and Manchin sat there and said no. The single Democrat among Republicans who all voted no. Manchin joined them in saying, no, women, you do not have control of your own bodies. We will listen to the unborn fetuses in your body and force you to carry them like the handmaid's tale. Shouldn't be surprised by this, people. This is also the same person that turned around and shot down the Voting Protection Rights Act, the John Lewis Act. He also shot down the George Floyd Police Reform Act, right along with Tim Scott from the Republican side. Manchin has literally made a current political career out of derailing anything progressive. But his answer to this was, if you don't like what's going on, vote in more liberals. And the thing that always kills me, why do people believe that liberal is such a bad thing? I myself consider myself progressive. I don't consider myself Democrat. I don't consider myself Republican. I am progressive. I like to think that, I want to push things forward. I think we need to move past some world age old thinking and mannerisms and things of that nature. I think we need to move past that. So yes, I am all for climate change. I am all for instituting police reform. I am all for increasing the minimum wage. I am basically all the things that Manchin does not want to do. And it's amazing to me that Manchin's like, oh, well, we can talk about it, but he does what he always does. Comes to the table, dances a jig, and then he leaves. So to the people in West Virginia, I'm almost certain, because there was a story that we did in West Virginia, how they feel about Manchin, and a lot of people did not like what Manchin's doing. Why? West Virginia is not that far away from Mississippi as far as food and human and health services, welfare, child food stamps, things of that nature. West Virginia is not that far off. And I've always said this best, and I'll say it again. Even though he is a Democrat, I said before, he's a moderate Democrat. Moderate Democrats are like Republican light. You're just enough to be considered Democrat, but apparently everything you vote on is conservative. And we shouldn't be surprised by Manchin. Although I would hope, if there is a Democratic hopeful out there who is in West Virginia, who is running to be who is running to be in the Senate, run now, run hard, and I wish I could vote for you, because Manchin is literally albatross to progress. Just saying. Moving right along, guys. The autopsy report just came in for Walker, and again, it shouldn't be surprising considering the fact of how many rounds the police let off to a person that was running away from them that did not have a gun on him.
Ohio have released a preliminary autopsy report from the death of Jayland Walker. The 25-year-old black man was shot and killed by police, allegedly after attempting to flee during a traffic stop last month. NBC News national correspondent Gabe Gutierrez joins us now for the latest. Gabe, talk to us more about this autopsy report. What did we learn?
Hi there, St. Clay. Well, the medical examiner this morning in Akron, Ohio, says that Jayland Walker was hit at least 46 times by bullets. Now, those are bullet wounds. It's possible, more than one of those wounds could have been made by the same bullet entering or exiting a different part of Walker's body. But significantly, at least 5 of those bullets hit Walker in the back. Now, the medical examiner can't say whether that meant that he was running away from police or whether his body may have been twisting after the gunfire started. Now, you're looking at that video, which we have paused. That is body camera video from police that was released earlier this month. Certainly, this case has touched off protest in Akron, Ohio. Walker's funeral was also this week, but still a lot of questions that the family has been bringing up after a very emotional death here. Of course, this all happened last month when police say that Walker they attempted to stop him because of a traffic stop. Police say he then started speeding away, and the police say that there was at least one shot fired from that car, according to security footage. Walker, according to the investigation, was not armed at the time he was shot, but police say they did find a gun inside the car. St. Clay?
Gabe, really disturbing. 46 shots. I mean, what is his family now saying about his death, given that disturbing footage as well?
Well, certainly. And as I mentioned, this week was Walker's funeral. Was Walker's funeral, and the family is still asking a lot of questions about this. They're asking for the investigation to play out. When they're asked about may have whether Walker may have fired a shot, but what they're saying is that under no circumstances should he have been shot as many times as he was by police. Take a listen to what his cousin had to say earlier this week.
This is a second cousin that I've lost to police brutality, Norman Cooper in San Antonio, Texas. Both I'm close with. Grew up with Jayland, watched his father be present in his life, tell him how to, maneuver in the world. Jayland's, like everybody said, very kind, quiet, humble. How does something like this happen to him? And then what do I do? How do I respond? I'm tired of sitting on the sideline, being a spectator. I just don't know where to turn to.
And I just spoke with Rodre Walker just a few minutes ago following the release of this autopsy report. He says the family is simply devastated.
I mean, completely understood. Because, okay, and I know a lot of those conservative media, Fox News folks are going to jump on this. Oh, but he had a gun in the car. There was a shot fired. Officers took this as a hostile action. Okay. But in the same sense, let's look at it this way. There were officers in Texas that knew there was an armed gunman and stood outside of a hallway for nearly an hour plus before engaging him. And that was hostile action. So don't, comparing one versus the other, I know is saying a lot, but I'm just pointing this out. He jumped out the car, fleeing traffic violation, jumped out the car, was running, was hit 46 times. How do you explain that? I'm sorry. I say this for reasons. I say it's law enforcement. Explain that. How can you explain that? Because the simple fact of the matter is, you're gonna have a little hard time saying it. You're gonna have a little hard time doing that. How can you explain the use? I mean, understanding 1 shot to 2 shots, yes. 46 shots, you were looking to kill. And of course, the police's usual giveaway sign is, "Oh, I feared for my life." 9 officers shot this man, and they're all claiming that they're in fear for their life. So yes, how do we know this is going to go? Well, that's the thing with these investigations. When a black man is shot, especially running away with his back turned, maybe they could probably suspend the officers. But I'm going to be honest, I don't see it going. I can see the DA coming back and sitting there saying that the DA, along with the police officer internal affairs, come back and say the officer's been cleared, that it was a clean shoot, even though 46 shots is beyond excessive. But I could see them come back and sit there saying the officers are cleared of any wrongdoing. They go back on the beat. Family turns around and sues for wrongful death. Possibly we'll get that. But again, this is the reason why there's still distrust among minorities and law enforcement. This is why for a lot of black people, when they see cops now, do they go home? The whole thing of, because we've seen what happens when you're complicit, non-complicit, when you don't run, when you do run, when you try to be helpful versus not saying anything at all. There's too many fallen brothers out there who have died these police traffic stops, and not enough officers have actually been accounted for their crimes. But I could be wrong. Criminal cases could be brought up. These officers may no longer be a part of the force anymore, but we'll see. But speaking of laws that make no sense, Missouri decided that, well, if America is going to come from our guns, we're going to pass a law. I shouldn't expect this from nearly the last state that's almost dead last in education.
September 2019 in Columbia, Missouri. 5 murders in just 10 days. Police, led by Chief Jeff Jones, formed a task force with the ATF to fight back.
We were getting lead after lead after lead, and we were solving gun crime after gun crime after gun crime.
But that stopped after Missouri passed a law called the Second Amendment Preservation Act.
We had to pull out. We had to stop working with the ATF to avoid litigation.
The legislation, which took effect in 2021, bars police from enforcing federal gun laws that aren't already on the books in Missouri, and allows citizens to sue police departments if they do, for $50,000 each time. It means that parts of the recent gun control legislation passed in Congress may not be enforceable in Missouri.
Do you think right now the federal government is jeopardizing Second Amendment rights here in the state of Missouri?
Yeah, absolutely. It's no longer hypothetical. It's no longer, well, we don't want to take your guns away. No, they're saying we want to take away AR-15s. They are wanting to take guns away.
State Rep. Jared Taylor co-sponsored the bill. He says police can still work with federal partners to enforce state law.
We are holding our law enforcement accountable. They aren't federal resources. They're Missouri resources.
We spoke to the police chief in Columbia, and he says this makes his job harder to go after violent criminals with guns.
Yeah, I disagree. I don't think that this bill in any way stops him from doing his job.
But Chief Jones says the law is vague. And across the state, some agencies have put new limits on their use of federal resources, including machines like this that compare shell casings using a federal database.
These police officers come to work every day to keep people safe, that they're trying to interpret a broadly worded, in my opinion, poorly worded law that no one can agree what the boundaries are.
The Department of Justice is suing, accusing Missouri of trying to invalidate federal statutes. It's a battle over states' rights that could end up on the steps of the Supreme Court.
The Constitution clearly puts an avenue in place for the state to push back, which is exactly what we're doing.
On a stoop in St. Louis where gunshots keep people up at night, a federal courtroom seems very far away.
Behind me, down the street, up the street, around the corner, it's always very close to my house.
And you hear it?
And I hear it, yes.
In the last 2 years, Tanya McCall has lost 3 family members to gun violence.
State legislators is not paying attention to a neighborhood like mine because they're steady passing these dangerous policies and putting the laws in place.
Chief Jones is angry about the violence and the state law.
Do you think this law makes people less safe?
It does make people less safe. There's no doubt about it.
Stephanie joins me now. Is Missouri the only?
So yeah, that just goes to show you, and I never thought I'd say this, I agree with law enforcement on this. Imagine if you were law enforcement and you're working with a federal agency such as the ATF, that you're trying to crack down on gun violence in your state, and you're being successful. Then the powers that be, that is your state legislature, decide to pass a Second Amendment Preservation Act that pretty much sits there and says you cannot enforce any laws that are not already on the books. So what they're saying at this point is that everything that was done, including I can't even really call it a gun bill law. It's like an appetizer from Chili's gun bill law that got signed into place. But still, currently in Missouri, you cannot enforce that. Why? Because of the Second Amendment Preservation Act that is currently in that state. And it's amazing to me. It is amazing to me the level of how Second Amendment gun nuts. Don't get me wrong. There are responsible gun owners out there. I'm not talking about y'all. Like I said, I'm with that group. I'm a firearms owner. Y'all responsible. You're not. And please don't take this to heart. I'm not talking about y'all. I'm talking about the paranoid tinfoil. Got ammo stocked up by the pallet jack load, that the 100+ gun people, the fact that you are so paranoid that you think either the government's going to come for your guns or Russia's going to invade us. You guys, the ones I'm talking about, because Missouri ain't the only state, Tennessee, mostly every southern state's full of them. But Missouri took it one step farther. The fact that they believe that somebody's coming for your guns. And you heard the politicians sit there and say, oh, well, they're coming for AR-15s. Yeah. An assault-style weapon. Yes. You didn't say they came for your pistol. They didn't come for your shotguns. They didn't come for your rifles. They came for your ARs. Because I always say this best. As much as I appreciate ARs, if I need to give them up, I would. If giving them up means that, people are safer, that we can actually enforce laws, things of that nature, and it requires me to get my AR-15 up, cool. Because what do I need it for? I mean, I bought it for home defense, but I also have a shotgun. I also have pistols. They also for home defense. But Missouri people like those in Missouri and people like that think that, oh, well, this is going to come for your guns. Oh, the age-old NRA saying they're going to come for your guns. And I've said this many a times. I'll say it again on this podcast. Uncle Sam's not coming for your guns. Do you not realize that the government has access to way, 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 way more better stuff than what you have? I'm just saying, the government has access to better weapons than you got. I say this all the time to gun nuts. Why would America come for your guns? If America wanted to get you or get one of its citizens, had a problem. And there is literally nothing in your stockholder doomsday prep that will not stop governments from getting, that will not stop the U.S. government from getting to you if they wanted to in America. Just saying. But with that being said, though, it does hamstring law enforcement. It does. Imagine that you're actually getting help, but now it's like, well, if you violate this, not only can the fact that your arrest could be invalidated, but they can sue you for $50,000 each time. Now think about that. How can law enforcement do their job if they're worried about the fact that the person they're arresting is literally going to sit there and go, I'm just going to sue and possibly win? It hamstrings law enforcement. Don't get me wrong. I'm all for police reform. I still think it's heavily needed. But I also believe that laws like this make it harder to do their job. I don't blame the police chief for how he feels, because he's exactly right. It's going to make it harder for him and others in that state to do their job because of this dumbass act. It's not preventing anything. You're just making sure, because they're trying to use Amendment 10 against which again, for all things not decided by the Constitution, their powers go back to states for states' rights for decisions. They're trying to use that. But the simple fact of the matter is just that we need to have better gun control than this, because that's what's the messed up part about it. But we'll follow that story as it comes along. But another story that's came out, again, with the fact that Roe versus Wade being overturned. The simple fact of the matter is, guys, is that the next story I'm about to play is going to be very hard to hear. So trigger warning already ahead. But we can expect this kind of stuff, because now a 10-year-old this week had to experience two things in life that a 10-year-old should never experience: the fact of being raped and the fact of how many walls she had to go through just to have her abortion. Again, trigger warning, you can't make this up.
Wednesday in Columbus, Ohio, a judge ordered 27-year-old rape suspect Gerson Fuentes held on $2 million bail.
It's my understanding she, in fact, just turned 10 years old.
According to court documents, Fuentes confessed to raping and impregnating a 10-year-old girl. A detective says she then traveled from Ohio, which has banned most abortions, to neighboring Indiana to end the pregnancy. The case has become the latest flashpoint in the national abortion debate following the Supreme Court's reversal of Roe v. Wade. It was first reported earlier this month by the Indianapolis Star newspaper, citing a single source, an OBGYN in Indianapolis. The story went viral. Last week, President Biden brought it up.
Imagine being that little girl. I'm serious. Just imagine being that little girl, 10 years old.
But over the next several days, Republicans, including Ohio's Attorney General, cast doubt on the story.
We have regular contact with prosecutors and local police and sheriffs. Not a whisper anywhere.
Then, yesterday, after the suspect's arrest, he issued a written statement. My heart aches for the pain suffered by this young child. I am grateful for the diligent work of the Columbus Police Department in securing a confession and getting a rapist off the street. The Wall Street Journal editorial board had also previously questioned the story. Now it's published a new editorial correcting the record, writing, it appears President Biden was accurate. Still, Indiana's Republican Attorney General says he'll investigate the OBGYN who performed the procedure for failing to report it. That OBGYN says in part, doctors must be able to give people the medical care they need, when and where they need it. The case now highlighting deep divisions in this country as states scramble to clarify their own laws from supporters of abortion rights.
It's a hard truth to realize that these horrible things are going to happen to children and other people in your state because of the really severe restrictions that are placed
to those who oppose abortion.
With so many questions about what really happened, it's a real shame that the Biden administration rushed to exploit this poor little girl's situation.
And today, Republicans blocked an attempt by Senate Democrats to pass a bill to codify the right of individuals to cross state lines.
Which we will get into momentarily. But yes, that's the story. A 10-year-old was raped. And again, horrible, tragic, should never happen. But on the other side, because Roe versus Wade is overturned, multiple states had trigger laws put in place to ban abortions, that she literally had to travel across state lines to get an abortion. Fox News and others including some publications, as you saw, all called BS. They called BS in the story. We can't find any record of this. We can't. Where's this 10-year-old that got an abortion? Well, I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that people kind of have to travel to, if they're lucky to go across states, sometimes go across the country. Maybe it's the fact that they didn't want their names being put out there. Maybe it's the fact that doctors have to now worry about getting abortions to where, reporting it may not seem as needed, aside from comparing to the user's care. But again, it is amazing to me that those that doubted the story when it came out and was verified and validated, oh, you can't say you fucked up. Can't say you're sorry. Can't say that, maybe we should wait for all the facts before we pass judgment in this instant gratification society that we live in. Maybe you should have waited till the facts came out. Because it's amazing that you saw the representative there was like, oh, well, I don't know if it really happened. I can't prove it. My collective heart weeps for that young girl. You can stick that. We can stick your thoughts and prayers personally. And again, now the DA is looking to see about investigating the doctor that performed the abortion. Did we not sit there and say all this would happen if Roe versus Wade was overturned? Did we not say the nightmare that is literally and figuratively just trying to ensure the protection of choice for women? Did we not say how this would happen if need be? And yet I feel like I want to say I told you so. That yes, a 10-year-old had to go across state lines because the rapist, who was caught and is now facing trial, but now the focus is, well, how come the doctor didn't report it? It's like, what I don't get? What I don't get is how Republicans and those for pro-lifers, oh, well, we should investigate the doctor that did this. Do you understand the reason why they had to go the way they went? Because not only was their medical professional, their careers, their livelihood, their ability to practice, their license to practice medicine would have went all out the window because a bunch of old white men decided that they have better idea of what to do with women's bodies than women themselves. That an overly conservative Supreme Court sat there and said, no, we're going to listen to a fetus instead of the person carrying the fetus. You basically, those people, I say it all the time, if you are pro-life, pro-birth, you basically are saying women are no better than broodmares. And at the same time, we now see the horror of a future where hopefully little girls like that 10-year-old don't have to go through. But now it's a very possible future, and that's fucking scary. But again, a little bit in that video they did talk about, though, was the House, mainly the House Representatives, were trying to pass bills to restore abortion rights. And, well, it's symbolic at best.
The bill is passed.
For the first time in the post-Roe era, the House passing legislation to fight the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe versus Wade.
Our pro-choice, pro-women Democratic majority stands resolute. We will take further action to defend women's reproductive freedom.
The Women's Health Protection Act and Ensuring Women's Right to Reproductive Freedom Act are a pair of bills meant to restore and protect abortion rights for American women.
Every single American has the right and the freedom to make the health care decisions that they need, including abortion.
Democrats' abortion agenda is much more radical than anything that was in Roe. We stand on the side of life.
It's unlikely they'll become law, with the bills expected to fail in the Senate.
Overturning Roe versus Wade was a historic occasion that signals a new beginning for millions of unborn American babies. I'm looking forward to informing the American public why the Supreme Court's decision is a positive development for our country.
So far, at least 13 states have seized nearly all abortion services, including Ohio, where officials say a 10-year-old girl was raped, impregnated, and forced to leave Ohio to get an abortion. The Attorney General of Indiana announcing an investigation into the doctor who performed the abortion in that state for potentially failing to report the rape and the abortion, even though records show the doctor did file a termination of pregnancy report. The doctor's attorney saying she has not violated any law and that they're considering legal action against those who have smeared her name.
And all of this is happening as the state of Texas sues the Biden administration after the White House wrote a letter to hospitals this week reminding doctors that they are protected by federal law to terminate a pregnancy as part of emergency treatment. Planned Parenthood slamming the lawsuit, saying the consequences will be devastating.
So yeah, I mean, don't not get me wrong. I say this all the time, but there are some things that are just symbols. You know, the House trying to pass bills to protect Roe versus Wade. Yes, they'll pass the House. Now they're going to the Senate. Good old Joe Manchin is still sitting there. Good old Cinema, which again is a name we haven't said in a while, from Arizona, still sitting there. In a perfect world, Democrats would have it made. They could literally sit there and use their slim majority. Kamala Harris, Madam Vice President, would be the vote that gets them over the hill, and it'd be codified. We said the same thing about the Voting Rights Act. We said the same thing about the George Floyd Police Reform Bill. We said the same thing about Building Back America. We said the same thing about canceling student loan debt. We said the same thing about increasing the minimum wage. We said the same thing about repealing Trump's tax cuts, which are still in effect currently. The thing about this is, guys, these are symbolic because, unfortunately, we have a Congress, especially for the fact that Democrats, who again are going to have a hard time trying to win their case in November, even though Republicans have all sat there and told women, by far the biggest group of voters out there, outside of minorities, you just sat there and told them that their rights don't mean shit to you. So if I was Republicans, I would be very concerned come midterms because you just pissed off possibly the biggest group of voters out there who either make sure to either increase Democrats or, in a very bizarro world, may actually bring more Republicans. And if that happens, I'm really going to be scratching my head. But again, it's this whole thing of it's a symbolism thing. I don't think Biden can get it through because, well, Biden right now is just, he's managing the House. Even though the House is on fire, even though the House is literally about as shaky as a firecracker, but Biden is doing all he can to minimize damage while he's in Saudi Arabia playing nice with the same people who may have ordered Jamal Khashoggi's death. Surprising. But moving right along, guys, last story that we got before we get to our feel-good segment, guys, is that I like the fact that progressivism is not lost on the youth, especially with some of the fact of the matter is just that kids, I will say this all the time, challenge everything, write, learn, read what they don't want you to read, still be intelligent, critical thinking people. That's all I hope for the next generation. And these group of kids are doing exactly that. But pay attention to the lady at the end because what she says is just, well, it's Fox News thinking.
Voices must be heard.
Students with the Pride Liberation Project rallying ahead of the Fairfax County School Board meeting, saying the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe versus Wade has pushed them to shout even louder in support of proposed changes, including combining genders in some units of family life education or sex ed.
If they adopt this reform of creating co-ed FLE, they will be taking a step forward in advancing inclusivity of transgender, non-binary students. And it's a step forward in, recognizing that queer people need to learn about their sexual health as well in a safe way.
The recommendations made by an advisory committee recommended mixing genders in grades 4th through 8th on topics including puberty and sexual health, something that is already done in some Metro DC school districts. Still, it is a controversial topic.
Some of the discussions are about activities which I think almost are sexualizing our children to some extent, up to the point of almost grooming them. I think this is not a good idea to have them both all in the same class, boys and girls.
While there was no vote on the changes, the board prepared to appoint new members to the advisory committee. On new Superintendent Dr. Michelle Reed's first full board meeting with that title.
I'm hopeful that the new superintendent, Dr. Michelle Reed, will in fact give us opportunities to meet with her, various groups, get a balanced input.
We're not asking anyone to take on any crazy reforms. We're asking them to adopt FLECAX reforms, which is the FLE committee that they've chose themselves.
So again, first off, it's sex ed reform. Sexual education needs to be taught anyway. Why? Because when sexual education is taught in schools, teen pregnancy drops, STDs or fatal diseases drops, and the simple fact of the matter is they're informed. Again, like this show, you do a lot better as a society if we're informed. And it's amazing to me that what they're asking for is they have same-sex sex reform. Oh, well, I don't think we should have we shouldn't have this because it's almost like you're grooming them. For what? What are you grooming them for? I mean, considering her age, I'm assuming she's probably in her, born. And I'm not trying to make fun of the lady, but let's be honest, she looks like she's in her 60s. So let's wind the clocks back. She was probably born around the 50s, 60s. It's just, I hate to say this, but it's amazing when something is new or something progressive is introduced, there's always fear. People fear what they do not know. And I never understood that. Why do you fear what you do not know in the sense that this could actually be beneficial? Every child should learn sexual education. They should, for multiple reasons. But saying that that's going to groom them, that's the part where I'm just like, no. If anything, I could be real and say church grooms more pedophiles than school does. I mean, considering the most recent stories, I could say that. I could say that Boy Scouts had a history of homosexual acts performed on boys by scout leaders. But nobody's saying that. I could turn around and name 3 different areas, including music, which, by the way, the 50s and 60s groomed a lot of people. But again, nobody's talking about that. People fear what they do not know and do not want to embrace change. And kudos to those Virginia students for trying to do just that. But that being said, guys, we're going to move into our feel good segment, because usually how the fact we got here, we usually cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom sometimes. Make use your faith in humanity, but hey, it's the weekend. Hopefully it's nice and sunny where you are. Hopefully not hot. But if you're like me in Tennessee on God's hot plate, we are unfortunately still stuck in the 90s, and I cannot wait for freaking winter. But anyway, we're going to leave you guys out with some good vibrations, and hopefully these next 3 stories do that. Of course, this next story, which is basically an idea that has turned into a movement that has actually helped the city, and it all involves bottles. Yes, I feel like this is a Bill Nye. This is like a Bill Nye segment, but just go with me on this.
With this New Orleans neighborhood, millions of glass bottles from Bourbon Street and beyond are sorted, scooped, shattered, and recycled. Glass Half Full is the brainchild of Max Stites and Fran Troutman, college friends who were shocked to realize the city has no curbside glass recycling program.
This idea came to you while you both were still in college.
Correct. Yeah. We didn't feel like we could really wait.
They started small, collecting used bottles in a backyard. Now, 2 years in, they're running a 40,000 square foot facility.
All of these are filled with glass.
Yeah, this is all from like just one drop-off day.
So far, they say they've diverted more than 2 million pounds of glass away from landfills. But turns out the bottle's second life is even more impressive.
Take a feel of that, and I can't believe it's glass.
This is like powder.
The sand-like product fills up bags for hurricane prep, and the coarser variety spread along the Louisiana shore to help replenish the disappearing coast.
Louisiana is one of the most susceptible to climate change. So we need to be thinking outside of the box and doing things differently than we have before.
Across the state, thousands agree.
I'm here with a collection of my parents and their friends' glass. So it's nice to actually see it helping out.
A lot of people don't think about where their waste is going. And I think that's something we're trying to change.
Cheers to that. Blaine Alex.
And I thought that was pretty cool. Number one, the simple fact of the matter is, it's recycling. I'm all about climate change, trying to make things better. And again, for all those people that fell asleep in science class, yes, glass does basically become a sand-like powder when crushed. Yay, science. But again, good people just trying to keep the planet moving. I can't knock that. The next one is, well, if you're going to be a paratrooper, who's about to go into a plane. And if you're like me and you are not a good flyer and have a fear of heights, well, I want to remember this. I want to remember this next tidbit that they did to relax. Sing My Girl. And I'm kind of mad. It sounded pretty good.
Well, here's the 82nd Airborne Division. Tonight at Fort Bragg in North Carolina, members of the 82nd Airborne Division in perfect formation.
I guess you say, what can make me feel this way? My girl, my girl, my girl.
Singing My Girl by The Temptations.
I don't need
Part of the 82nd Airborne Division All-American Chorus that started some 80 years ago. Between helicopter jump training on the drop zone, their jump master, Army Sergeant Kara Hall, requesting a song. And right here tonight, the 82nd Airborne on the power of music.
Our main job is to uplift the spirits of our soldiers that fight for our country in different areas of the world.
What can make
With an encore just for us.
my girl, my girl, my girl. Thank you.
Serving their country and
I'm not mad about that. I thought he was gonna go to the Denver Rough for a second. Ain't nobody coming to see you. Oh, I'm sorry. That's wrong. That's supposed to be a feel-good moment. I'm sorry. Let's be honest. If you remember the Temptations, let's be honest. David Ruffin had that moment down. He had that runoff. I'm not gonna do it because I can't sing, but you guys all know what I'm talking about. But I thought that was pretty cool. I want to remember that next time I get on the plane to start singing My Girl and hope nobody thinks I'm freaking out. Hey. Yeah, a little bit about my life. Anyway, last story I got, guys, is one that I did not know about in the world of fencing. Fencing, I guess, is a sport I usually see during the Olympics, but not to know that there's actually a story behind that at Temple University surrounding one woman and her impact that she's had on the sport.
Nikki Frank equates fencing to a physical game of chess.
You try to set up your opponent, you try to outmaneuver them or outthink them and to get them to do what you want them to do.
She got hooked early, growing up in New York City.
Bet you were good. Not in the beginning. I was pretty awful, I think. But I was very fortunate to be able to go to a college that had an outstanding coach.
That coach helped her pave a road to the Olympics and to a career. Frank started Temple University's first women's fencing team in 1972.
People would come into the practice facility and they would immediately walk up to my male assistant coach, assuming he was the head coach.
Yeah.
It couldn't be me,
Nearly 900 wins later, no one makes that mistake anymore. Could you have imagined, in those first few years of that program, having a space like this?
No, not at all.
But the true measure of her success is the impact she has had on her athletes.
Your time fencing with Nikki is a part of who both of you are.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Coach demands a certain level of decorum and effort.
Megan Ross just graduated, more than 30 years after Rachel McDaniel.
It makes me quite proud that she's still doing it. I didn't see a whole lot of fencers that look like me, let alone coaches.
Coach Frank, the only African-American woman head coach in Division I fencing, has witnessed a sea change.
Have we done enough to level the playing field between men and women in sports, especially in the college level?
We have done a lot, but there's still a lot to do.
So she'll be back next fall, 50 years and counting. Stephanie Gosk, NBC.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Number one, that I did not know that there were black head coaches, especially black women head coaches in the sport. But definitely we'll let people know about that because, like I always say before, representation. I haven't been the only one to say it. There have been others out there saying I'm just joining the chorus. Representation matters. It really, truly does. But that's going to do it for this podcast, guys. So I do thank you all for watching, for liking, letting people know this is live. I want to know what you guys think. I mean, what do you think about the stories that we covered? You know, your thoughts on it. Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? It's completely okay. I still want to know. That's what conversation drives the nation. That's all I'm saying. But some shameless plugging before I do get out of here. Shout out to my boy Ed Vaughn, BigBZA on Facebook, BigBZA on all socials. He does have a new beats page out, so you know if you do like a beat that he's doing, talk to him about it. He actually might sell it to you. Also, he is coming out with some new stuff very soon, but definitely check him out. Devon Westman on Facebook, BigBZA on all socials. Aside from yours truly, guys, you can find me at BlockFox447 on Instagram. I usually post reviews or anything I watch or listen to or play, and also do gym stuff because I do a couple push-ups. Trying that smaller screen, got to work with it. And also at the same time, I am honestly all about encouragement, pushing people forward, motivation, because we need that this day and age. We need to learn to be kinder. We need to just you don't have to be overly nice or go out of your way, but just be freaking decent. Say hi to somebody you may never say hi before. It doesn't have to be a long-lasting goodbye or stare lovingly into their eyes. Just say hi or hello, how you doing? You know, just basic decent things. Because the reason why I say that is because you don't know what everybody's going through. Everybody's got their own personal storms they're going through. But you just being kind and decent, you may do a lot more than just brighten the day. You may actually save a life and would not know it. So again, it takes zero energy. It takes zero energy to be nice. It takes 100% of your energy to be a dick. Trust me, because I'm all about the pay stuff sometimes. Also, forget it, guys. I know you see my ticker at the bottom, but let me blow this up. If you copy and paste this link into your browser, we'll take you to my link tree. That's the YouTube and Facebook group for all my podcasts. How the Frack got here, Get Bit, and of course the Uploads podcast. So definitely check them out. Like if you like them, subscribe to the channels. Let me know who's paying attention. And like I said, comments. I want to see what you guys think. Or if you think I'm doing a great job, just say, hey man, I like what you're doing. You know, you're doing an awesome job. I'll appreciate that. But I just want to know, because part of this is just my therapy. Part of this is like my mission in this podcast is to inform, get people informed in current events, local, not just the federal level, but the local level as well. Get into your community, learn about the folks that are trying to basically run the show. That's what I'm saying about. And, you know, don't just disregard everything at face value. Really get into it. Find out the truth. Not to say about tinfoil hats, but actually from reputable and legitimate sources. That's my mission. That is my mission that I hope that I can inspire people to do. So with that being said, guys, again, COVID is still out there. So if you're going to be out in large groups, please wear a mask. Please take care of yourselves. Like I said before, we take care of ourselves, we take care of others. Because again, COVID's not gone. COVID and its Omicron variants are still out there. But until a lot of us get on the vaccination train, we're going to be dealing with that until it finally dies a cold and timeless death. But the last thing I'll say about how the Frack got here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information, but providing a logical perspective that goes along with it. We do a lot better in society when we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past by making decisions now that we should have done back then, like elect our first Black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman to the Federal Board of Governors, by electing our first woman to a high command position in the U.S. Navy. When we don't learn from our past, our history, we are doomed to repeat it. That's why we keep asking ourselves, why does everything go up on your paycheck? Why do we elect different politicians but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the Frack got here. Thank you all for